Hey YouTube, stuck in traffic on the M25. Thought what better time than this to make a little video. So I made a video a while back about the basics to keeping Discus. So aimed at the newbie, from Discus newbie. I've been keeping Discus for a few years now, so I still consider myself a newbie, but I've got some experience. And I talked in that video a little bit about what you want as your kind of optimal setup if you were just getting started, and answer some of the basic questions. Purely my own opinions, no hard and fast rules, just kind of wanting to give people the best chance they had to get started with the fewest amount of problems. I watched a video from Michael's Fish Room, I think it was. Recently just subbed to him, so check that channel out. Seems good. And he had one of his videos was a bit of a rant about Facebook groups and the general attitudes of people on the internet when folk are asking for help. So where do you go, what do you ask, and what kind of things can you expect from people on the internet? And it struck a chord with me because it echoed some of my experiences when I was a newbie and when I was starting out. So the general idea there is people they don't want to give advice, they want to tell you how much better they are than you. They want to point out how you're doing it wrong and ridicule you and call you stupid and things like that. And I'm sure it's the same in any hobby. It's definitely rife within the Discus hobby here in the UK. I don't know about America, but I assume it's the same. You'll find people who they'll go on the internet, they'll join groups on Facebook that are dedicated for Discus people, and they'll ask questions. They'll say, I got a couple of Discus, X problem is happening, what can I do, or how can you help? And rather than offer any advice, the majority of people in the majority of groups will just say, you're an idiot, you're doing that wrong, your tank's too small, you've got the wrong fish in, you haven't quarantined. Just generally hating on them rather than giving them any constructive criticism or constructive advice. Now on Facebook here, well, out of the groups that I have tried to use over the years, a lot of them are based around a specific breeder. So a breeder will have a Facebook group that they'll primarily use to sell fish, but it's also meant to be a community where people can come and ask questions. Now some of those groups are great, and you'll find people there that are willing to help and do want to give the best advice. Some of them though really are not, and I cannot understand for the life of me how they operate in that way, because the majority of the time all they are doing is driving away customers rather than getting new customers on board. I'm not sure whether I want to name names or anything like that, but I personally have had lots of trouble with certain individuals around the scene here in the UK that I've clashed with, had heated exchanges with. I'm as guilty as anyone else for getting roped into these exchanges and getting drawn in rather than rising above it. But for example, when I first started getting into, I kept tropical fish for years and years and years, and got into Discus purely because someone, as a birthday present, got a massive tank from my wife, and someone suggested, why don't you look at Discus? And like the typical newbie, I did very little research, went to my local fish shop, which subsequently turned out to be terrible, but went there, saw some Discus, looked at some pictures on the internet of what Discus look like when they grow up, thought, yep, that's for me, I'm going to try that. Bought, I think, 5 at the time, way over the odds, and paid for a price for the quality of fish that I've got. Stuck them straight in my tank with my existing fish, which on the most part were suitable to be in the same tank as Discus. I knew all the basics, I knew what temperature we were aiming at, things like that, but they weren't very good Discus. I didn't quarantine them properly, and I ran into problems. Some of the forums that I was a member of, had some discus keepers on there, and in the main they tried to help, but when I got to the dedicated discus forums, all they wanted to do was tell me I had terrible fish. They were essentially suggesting, get rid of them, cull them, kill them, come and buy some of my fish. That's not helpful. That's not the advice I was looking for. I was looking to give the fish I had the best care and deal with some specific issues I was seeing. What I want to see is some groups out there, and there are some good groups that give you the right advice regardless of what type of fish you've bought and where you've bought them from. So I just wanted to, it's more of a be aware that there are ulterior motives out there. Some people don't really care about you and your fish. They want to sell you their fish, or they are just twisted personalities that want to show you how much better than you they are. I've been banned from groups from asking questions and getting drawn into debates, and then the people who run the groups don't like the way the debate's going. So from that point on, all they're interested in is ridiculing you or talking you down and not wanting to have a debate, wanting to have an argument. And like I say, I'll get drawn into these things, or I have done in the past, and I like an argument as much as the next guy. So I'm more than willing to have an argument with someone, but there's lots of keyboard warriors, internet experts. They may keep fish for a while and they may know some things, but they're by no means experts, and they do not even go to the trouble of thinking, what is this person's specific setup? They don't know how, they won't even ask things about how are you keeping what kind of water change regime have you got, all those sort of things. All they want to do is hate on you and prove how much better than you they are. So just keep an eye on it. In my video I talked about making friends with your breeder. So if you've got a local breeder, talk to them, get advice from them, because you've already bought your fish from them. And if they're the good ones, they'll want to help you, and they'll want to sell you more fish in the future. And if you get that good relationship, they'll help you look after them as well. Just be a bit wary of that. There are people who like certain breeders because they've gone there and they've bought fish from there. Therefore, they don't want their decision to be proved to be a bad one, so they'll defend that breeder to the hilt. I just have lots of problems, especially with some sites. There was Discus Revolution was one site. I think I got banned from that a couple of times after having run-ins with one of the guys that ran that. Subsequently met him at another breeder's house when he was picking up some fish, and he was nice as pie to my face. But yeah, it's a bit of a minefield, so just be a bit cautious when you're asking for advice. Be very thick-skinned when you're asking for advice. And if you have got a breeder, trust your breeder. Make sure they're a good one. There's certain breeders that I respect and quite like to use and will trust their opinion, things like that. For instance, in the UK here, the breeder I use most is called Corbin Discus, because it's local to me. I know the guy that runs it, Tim, quite well. He's always looked after me, helped me out if I've had any problems, and I've not had that many problems, especially with fish from him. I've also used Chen's Discus here in the UK. Can't say a word against Francis down there. He's got one of the better groups, I think. It's one of the most popular groups. You tend to get fewer of the sort of infighting and snippy and snidey comments on that group than you do in some of the other ones. I've used most of the ones here in the UK. David Live, had a fish from him before. Northants Discus, had fish from them before. I've never had any of just Discus. Like a guy called Simon, I've had a few run-ins with him. I think he's a bit of a dick, to be fair, but I'm sure he thinks I am as well. But some people have very high opinions of themselves and don't really care about anyone else or whether they're trying to foster new business or not. They just want to get their way of doing things as the only way of doing things, rather than one good way of doing things. I've been to some breeders, when you say you get fish from other breeders, They don't want to know after that point because they might have some kind of personal issue with that other guy. But the amount of sniping and talking behind people's back that goes on, it's very detrimental to the hobby. So I want to foster a group or an opinion. I run a group called Discus Newbies on Facebook. It's not had any attention that it deserves. It's mostly just used by people to advertise their own discus at the moment. I need to spend some time on that and try and get a community built around it. If I was going to do that, it'd be good. But I'm not trying to suggest you go and only use my group or anything like that. But there are some good groups out there. I lost my train of thought now, but just be wary of the people that are going to jump down your throat. I want to see an environment where we're bringing new people into the hobby, where we're expanding the user base rather than driving people away because they see some of the comments and some of the fighting and snippy remarks. They're not going to come to you for help. They're not going to ask for problems. They're going to start seeing discus as a really hard fish to keep, when it's not really. The hardest part of it is trying to get any help when you don't necessarily have a relationship with the breeder. So there are places out there. By all means, give me a shout and I can direct you to some good people, or give me a shout if you don't agree with me and tell me you're doing your business a better way. Nowadays, if I've had a bad experience with you in the past. But yeah, it's a bit of a rant, I'm fed up with this hobby. There's loads of people out there that are willing to put in time and effort to help other people, but equally there's just as many, if not more, people that all they care about is themselves and have no intention of furthering the hobby, even to the detriment of their own business if they are a breeder. But hopefully you can find the help you need. Like I said, there are some good groups out there. If you're struggling, there are some good forums, there are some good Facebook groups. Give me a shout. I'll suggest some of the ones that personally I think are good and helpful. Talked about some of them here. So hopefully we can get a few more people involved in this and start to get a better environment for everyone, rather than this snipey, childish, ridiculous situation that we've got at the minute. I want to see a thriving hobby, not a dying hobby. It seems to be harder and harder to find that without getting into all the kind of problems I've been talking about. So, to summarise, don't despair. It's not all terrible. Just be aware that there are some dicks around. So, hope you enjoyed that. Hope it was a little bit useful, not all doom and gloom. I'll catch up with you next time. Cheers.